when you haven't done it, or when you don't have um, kind of a regular boring relationship with your spirit guides, then and there's a reason I'm saying it's boring, uh, then it seems like the way we talk with spirit guides is like what we see in the movies. We need help, and all of a sudden, clouds part, and Morgan Freeman's voice, or Mufasa's voice from Lion King, comes down at us and says, "You gotta do this." And then you won't have to worry about anything in your life. You'll be happy. You'll be wealthy. Just follow what I tell you. Well, it doesn't really quite happen. And if it does happen, it usually doesn't happen with high vibrational guides. It's usually our ego speaking. And our ego is a part of us, which is really awesome. If we didn't have ego, we would die. Ego is responsible for our survival. But what ego is not very good at is making us happy. So it does the job of keeping us alive, but the job of having us enjoy our life doesn't fall to the ego. If anything, you can get that enjoyment or that connection from your higher self. And so when we get these loud directives, a lot of times they are from our ego, which is fine. They can be quite valid. But the thing to remember is that the ceiling is low. So even though you will get advice, and it may be good advice, this advice is focused on survival, on making it through the day, which again, it's important. But this is advice is this, let me back up. This advice is fear-based. In other words, what do you need to do so that your fears don't happen? How do you mitigate fears? How do you prevent bad things from happening? That's advice of the ego, which is very useful. But it does not involve how to be happy. It just involves how to make do and how to survive. And so if you are looking for advice, or if you're looking for connection that has to do with your internal world, with your internal happiness, and of course, as you know, fortunately or unfortunately, happiness comes from within. All this, it can make me happy temporarily, right? But it's not going to create inner happiness in me. That has to be generated from the inside. And for that our guides can help us with, and that our higher self can help us with, definitely. But usually they talk to us in much more quieter ways. Sometimes, yes, you will hear a large booming voice, especially if you're doing something really, really stupid and they need to get your attention right away. Sometimes they'll do it. But usually they're not going to interfere. And the reason they don't interfere, and the reason that their voice is much quieter than your own internal voice, is that we have free will. Human beings were made to have free will, to choose for ourselves. And so we have the right to choose to destroy ourselves just as much as we have the right to choose to thrive. That right is yours. And when you make that choice, that's when your guides can help you. But they're not going to make that choice for you. And they're definitely, unless it's a critical situation, they're not going to reroute where you're going without your request. That's why they're quiet. That's why it takes quite a bit to get through the head noise in order to hear them. I'll say it again. The big part of why our guides are usually so quiet is that they respect you. Yeah, they respect your free will, And they're there to support you any way you need support. They're not there to drive your life. They're not there to dictate your life. They're not there to make sure you live a happy life. They're not there to make sure that you follow your purpose. They are there for you, wherever you are, whatever you want, whatever you do. And the request has to come from you. What that means is that not just asking has to come from you, but listening has to come from you. Think of it this way. Our guides don't talk to us. We hear them. You see the difference? It's all about responsibility. When they talk to us, then they are responsible. And in a way, our free will is a little bit taken away from us. When we listen, when we pull in the information, especially when we request it, then we are the ones doing the work. We are the ones in control of our lives. We are the kings and queens and gods and goddesses of our existence when we listen. So how do you listen? Some people, they hear things in their head. And when I channel, usually when I channel Raja, if you've heard Raja speak before, it's kind of cool. But I do hear her, but I don't hear her with my outer ear. I hear her with my inner ear. So the way you can think about it is this. Think about watching a movie or having a conversation, and then you remember it later. And sometimes the dialogue is so loud that it actually, even though it's in your head, it sounds like the voice is speaking it. So that's one way. But not everybody works that way. Not everybody's natural, let's say, talents or talents that they have developed involve hearing. Some people, they see things. And again, usually it's not how you see me now. Usually it's if you were to close your eyes and think about what your kitchen looks like or what your family room looks like, that's how you see it. So it's in the head. You see it through well, I guess through the mind, through imagination, you could say. But not everybody was made to do that, to be able to do that. So some people, I met a woman recently, she actually smells things. So she will smell her grandmother's perfume, or she will smell a particular flower blooming, and that'll mean something to her. And by the way, smelling is the rarest one. Sometimes I smell things, but very rarely. But some people do. In addition to that, you can get information just simply through knowing. And that's a big one. A lot of people disregard that one, and a lot of people, first of all, can't tell if it's their thoughts or it's their guide speaking. And because we have so much noise in our head, a lot of times we don't pay attention to the information that suddenly pops into our head, because all the other useless information suddenly pops into our head as well. And so that's why we say, quiet your mind, ground yourself, calm down, settle your nervous system. We say that one of the reasons is so the head noise goes away, so that when the information comes in, whether it's through knowledge, through vision, through hearing, through smell, or even through touch, sometimes it feels like you're being touched or you're being held, we can notice that it's there. So that's kind of, let's say, rule number one, or item number one. You have to know how to quiet your mind in order to communicate with your guides so that you can hear them, so that you can tell apart what information is coming from them and what information is your thoughts and what information is your ego. So that's one. Second is, let's say you have cleared your mind. How do you know that it's your guide speaking and it's not a really loud thought? Because that can happen, or ego can happen, or inner critic, inner judge. We got lots of people, lots of professions, lots of archetypes living in our head. And so how do you know? Well, you know this way. If the information you get is mitigation of fear, in other words, it has to do with keeping you safe, most likely it's not your guides, it's your ego. Unless, of course, there are situations where you need that higher perspective. But usually, information from guides will be, information from ego will be fear-based to mitigate fear. Also, sometimes in the body, if you go through the body, it'll feel like this. It'll feel like you want to just roll into a ball. What you will not be feeling with ego, which you will be feeling with your guides, it's this. It's a sense of peace, a sense of being in the moment. You want to open up your heart. Your body wants to be present. Your body wants to open. Your shoulders will move away from the ears. Your chest will rise up. You will want to sit up straight and tall. You will feel grounded, settled, in the moment. And even though, yes, there's all this weight on your shoulders, in that moment, when you receive that information, that weight won't matter. You'll be aware of it, yes, but you will be so in the moment, so present, that in that moment, all that stress won't matter. And then you'll be able to hear or understand or receive advice and direction. Now, again, each person works a little bit differently. And so what I'm saying now applies to, it's a general rule. But elements of this do need to be present. I had a client the other day, and she really wanted to communicate with her guides. But talking to her anxiety was off the charts. I mean, I could feel it with my body. But you don't need to be psychic, you don't need to be an empath to see how much anxiety she had. You can tell it from her body language, from her voice, from everything. And so, of course, she can't hear her guides because anxiety voice is so loud. And so we can't bypass this. We can't bypass our body to magically connect with the guides and know what to do. We have to go through the body because we are physical beings. So quieting the nervous system, taking it out of fight or flight or freeze or fawn, at least for the moment that you're going to communicate with your guides, is very, very important. If you're very high strung and unsettled and high anxiety, you can still hear them and you can still get their advice, but it's much harder to get through the noise. You kind of have to know how to do it. You have to have it, you have to have practiced it a lot and be very aware of what's going on in your head in order to have all that noise and still find the voice of your guides. So for most of us, especially if you're just beginning, quieting the mind, quieting the body, quieting the nervous system is important. So things like yoga are good, going for a walk, breathing exercises, playing with your dog or cat, anything you can do to relax, it will go a long way toward connecting with your guides. That's another thing. Now, as I said before, our guides speak to us in different ways. And sometimes there is no speaking at all. Sometimes the information we get is given to us externally. So not only do we have to look for that information inside of us, not only do we have to check in with our inner sight, our inner knowledge, and also with our body as well, we also have to look to see what's happening out here. Because again, the purpose of life, everybody wants to know what the meaning of life is. And I'm gonna do spoiler alert, I'm gonna tell it to you now. The purpose of life is to live. That's it. It's to be present. It's to be here. It's to accept all the joy, all the pain, to fully embrace the human experience. That's why we're here, really. And so we're not just to go inward. We are to go outward as well. Yes, we go inward so that we can get back to ourselves, so we can understand who we are, but we still have to interact with the world. And our guides will interact with the world around us as a way to communicate with us. So they talk to us internally and they talk to us externally. I will give you an example of your guides saying hello. This has just happened to me, so it's my personal example. Before COVID, I used to teach yoga. And when COVID started, I still taught it online a little bit, but eventually I stopped. So I'm now thinking I really want to get back to teaching yoga, and I like being a substitute teacher. I don't want to have my own class because I don't want to have a set schedule, but I love substituting for people, and I love meeting new people in different studios in different places. And so I was saying that about 2 days ago. Today, I get a text from this company that I've been teaching on and off for them, for years, but they haven't reached out to me probably in at least a year or two. So I wasn't expecting to get a word from them, but I get a word from them asking me if I want to teach a class in a week and a half in the next town over. That's your guides. That's communication from your guides. Sometimes we call it being in the flow. Sometimes we call it connected with the universe. But my guides have heard that. And what they did is they reminded that company of me. How did they remind that company of me? Well, last week, that company sent out an email asking who wants to come in and do a photo shoot for their rebranding. They're looking for people to be on their website. And so I was talking to them back and forth and asking them some questions. And today, again, I emailed them asking a question. And then 20 minutes later, they text me. So you can say it's a bunch of coincidences, right? Wanted to teach yoga, then it's a coincidence that that company had sent me an email, and it's a coincidence that it has happened right around the time when they needed a teacher. You can say that, but I look at it as synchronicities. It's a string of events that, if you could consciously arrange it, it would be very hard. And so synchronicities are messages from guides. Now, synchronicities can be positive and negative. In other words, if everything is going down the drain, if everything is just going wrong, one after the other, after the other, after the other, that's also the universe. It's also your guides speaking with you to get your attention. Usually unpleasant things will happen when we're not paying attention. When our guides need to reroute us a little bit, remember, they can't interfere. We have to ask for help. But when we are really off our path and we really need to get our stuff together, then a sequence of events, of synchronicities will happen that'll create an uncomfortable state for us. And then we'll want to get off our butt and do something. So moral of this story is, don't wait to get off your butt to do something. Don't wait for a crisis. Just do it. But again, talking about guides, synchronicity is positive and negative. That's your guides speaking with you. Also, you probably have all had that happen. You're talking to somebody and you're just saying whatever, and then a week later they're like, whoa, you said that and that made so much difference in my life. Thank you for that. And you don't even remember what you said. You're like, you probably don't even remember the conversation. So the wisdom that comes through you when you least expect it, not book wisdom, not knowledge, but this combination of energies that is just right for the moment. When it comes through you, your guides are involved in that. So that's another way to tell that your guides are near and that they're hearing and they're speaking. Another way is when you are talking to somebody and you hear just what you need to hear in the moment. In the same way as you have brought a message in the previous example I just did, this time the message comes to you. So the message doesn't come in your head, the message comes externally through another person. It can also come through a movie, through songs, through you're seeing a particular animal all the time. You are seeing repeating numbers like 11, 11, 11, things like that. That's your guides communicating. So you see, there are many ways that our guides can communicate with us. We tend to think that when they communicate, it'll be like what we see in the movies. You will be interrupted out of your thoughts. You will be interrupted out of your stressful day. You will be interrupted out of living a life that could use a bit more meditation, maybe. We expect that to happen, but that's not going to happen. The purpose of our guides is not to rescue us. It's not to interfere. The purpose of our guides is not to make us happy or make our life easy. The purpose of our guides is to be and to support you. And incidentally, if you want to help a person, if you got a friend in need, or in a need, I mean, in a psychological need maybe, something is going on and they need a bit of support, simply being there will go a really long way. And so that's what our guides do for us. And so it's our job to hear them. Now, there's one more component involved, and I'll end this lecture shortly. We're not going to do our meditation today because I wanted to talk about this stuff because I think it's important to know. One other thing we can do, or we should do, is go into a space of gratitude and thank our guides. So instead of asking our guides, oh dear guides, please, please, please help me, I'm stuck. That's not how they want to communicate with us. You shouldn't communicate with them like that, because dear guide, so high up above, tell me what to do. I'm such a lowly little creature down here. Fix me. Doesn't work that way. The way to do it, the way to reach out to your guides, so again, you don't only have to listen to hear them, you also have to engage with them, is through gratitude. So let's say you are, and I'm smiling, I use this example all the time, and I have so many students and clients that this works for, especially my Reiki students. It works like a charm. Let's say you got to go somewhere and maybe you're running late, and you can say, thank you, my guides, for helping me get to my destination on time and safely. I do that all the time. I thank them. When I get in my car, I thank them. Thank you for being there for me and making sure, taking care that I get to where I need to go safely. that, so that part, actually, I'm using a different example. Sorry, my mind just went somewhere. The part that works for a lot of my clients and for a lot of the Reiki students, it does have to do with getting somewhere, is the red lights. So they will thank their guides for giving them green lights so that they don't have to waste their time standing on the intersection. And so it'll be green lights all the way. And by the way, that's also how you can tell that your guides are communicating with you and that you are in the flow. You move through things with ease. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy. It just means that you don't have to break through walls each and every time. It's like in the flow. When you're in the flow, that's a message from your guides that they're there with you. And so thank you, guides, for giving me green light. Thank you, guides, for clearing the traffic. Thank you, guides, for helping me find a parking spot. Thank you, guides, for helping me find this awesome dress that I'm going to wear to this party I'm going, and I'm going to look really, really hot. That works as well. And of course, you can thank them for internal things. Thank you, guides, for helping me quiet my mind. Thank you, guides, for helping me quiet my body. Thank you, guides, for helping me find a solution to such and such. So that's how you talk to them. You thank them because really, in another reality, what you want has already happened. So you're thanking them for making that happen. And now the next part is to combine the two realities and step into the right future. So yeah, approach them with gratitude. And let's do one other thing. When learning to communicate with your guides, very rarely you will suddenly, switch will suddenly flip and now you can hear everybody. Sometimes it happens, but very rarely. What you have to do is you have to develop your listening muscle, your communication muscle. In other words, you have to develop your intuition, because intuition is a bridge that we use between the spirit world and the physical world. Intuition and imagination, they kind of go together. They do different things, but they go together. And so you gotta know how to use that. And so you gotta practice. How do you practice? Well, you practice on getting messages for things that are not important. For example, let's say you're a gardener and you're gonna go trim your rose bushes. You talk to the rose bush and you ask, which branch would you like me to trim first? Okay, this one. Which one next? This one. Which one next? This one. So you do things consciously. You don't just go and kind of do what I do. I'm not a really good gardener, just chop it all off. you wanna do it with awareness. And so you talk to your rose bush and you ask it, what do I do next? You go to the supermarket, you don't just mindlessly put a bunch of oranges in a bag. You look at the oranges, you can run your hand over them and you can say, which one wants to be eaten by me? Which one wants to nourish my body? Which one wants to come home with me? And then you select that one. You can even do it with inanimate objects. So I give this one to kids. When kids help to set the table, I have them talk to each fork and ask each fork which person they want to go with tonight. Again, these things are inconsequential. They're not going to make too much, really, they're not going to make any difference in your life, right? But you are practicing using your intuition, you're practicing using your imagination, you're practicing communication with spirit without having any emotional attachment, and that takes the pressure off. And you can do the same thing with a pendulum. You know, the pendulum here, you can ask it yes or no questions. So you can use a pendulum, use it for unimportant things as well. Um, should I eat Mexican food today? Nah. All right. Should I eat more eggs today? Okay, no eggs. All right. Should I have some soup? Ah, there we go. You see? It changed. So no more eggs, but some soup. Um, and then, of course, you know, oracle cards. If you got a deck, use that deck daily. Doesn't matter what the message is, doesn't matter if it's right. Your job is to learn how to communicate. The what, that'll come later. So that's the rundown on that. Um, hopefully you will find this lecture useful. I know it's a bit long. I wanted to do it in 15 minutes, but I knew I wasn't going to do it in 15 minutes. So if you are still here, thank you for sticking around until the end. And I will be back here next Wednesday in this group. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll probably put this one up on YouTube. I don't put all of them up, but this one I will, because I think it's good for people to know this stuff. If you are watching, then I will put in the description this group that I am talking about, and you can just join me every Wednesday at noon Pacific time for a meditation, or as today was for lecture. And then on Tuesdays, in the same Facebook group, I offer free live mini readings. So I go live, just like today. And if you want me to pull a card for you and do a little reading for you, I will do that right there and then. And there's no charge for that. And of course, I am an intuitive reader. I am a psychic. I'm a shamanic healer, Reiki healer. I do past lives, I do ancestral healing, I do soul retrieval. I do all sorts of things that involve working with spirit, working with energies. And so if you need some help with your anything going on in your life, with your personal growth, with your spiritual awakening, with your relationships, with helping you figure out your career, reach out and we can do a reading. And if you are ready, or when you are ready to make actual shifts in your life, then we can do a